right, good evening, everyone. It's been a while, but I want to double check on what's going on. Okay, I start seeing the notifications because last time I didn't have a notification on. We did a podcast broadcast not too long ago, and we didn't have any viewers. So just wanted to reach out and test this again. But okay, thank you very much. So my name is Hiram Figueroa. I'm doing LinkedIn Perspective, and the purpose of this segment is to more or less get acquainted and share with people what's going on as well. But the most part I want to be able to do is see if people are going to be able to respond as well. So there's been a couple things that have been going on here lately that I've been wanting to talk about. But the biggest thing I want to be able to talk about is PTSD. And I want to talk about, and it's about time I start seeing some people here because now it shows 37 versus 36 versus 0. So the biggest thing I want to really talk about tonight is PTSD, PTSD treatment, PTSD recovery, and PTSD in the workplace. So I want to be able to share with that as well when we're talking about the PTSD workplace, how toxic work environment, and I put quite a few posts as far as people responding, and I had a veteran that was there, the United States Army, calling it woke. So let me explain something to you, ladies and gentlemen. I don't think woke is the key word when we're talking about toxic work environment that affects everyone in the workplace. So for me, I need to be able to understand that as well. And I finally got some responses. And showing 45 minutes. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And what's up, James? How are you doing? But I want to be able to, reach out to people and see that we have a serious situation when it comes to toxic work environment and how it affects your mental health and how it affects your not only your mental health, your state of mind, your physical health, and your well-being. So for me, I want to be able to channel that. And if you notice that I put in quite a few posts about toxic work environment, quiet quitting, and quiet firing. So with quiet quitting and quiet firing, there's two different scenarios that come into mind. Quiet firing is when they kind of alienate you and they take the responsibilities away from you and they kind of ostracize you from the thing. So from that point on, right, quite a things happen in the workplace. There's nepotism, there's narcissism, right? And there's a form of cancel culture that brings into it, which brings a very toxic work environment, especially in today's age. Now, especially now with the workforce the way it is, with the cost of living, the cost of gas, the housing market, we're getting into the holiday season and we're looking at where things are at. So for me, I need to be able to share that because those are triggers that, pretty much triggered some PTSD situations. And I need to share that for you for a number of reasons. I need to share that for you to help you understand that mental health in itself is very important. And it's important enough for you people to understand that when you're in a situation where you have toxic leaders or toxic work environment or toxic culture, it affects you overall. It affects your performance. It affects your state of mind. It affects your relationship outside of work, right? It affects how you be able to. Thank you very much. Thank you. I appreciate it. And it affects quite a few people at this point. But I can honestly tell you, it affects your soul. right? It really affects your soul. And the biggest thing that what happens in a cancel culture, I have, I'm not going to mention their names, but they're in United States Army. He's a chaplain, and she's a supported wife. I can relate to what's going on because I have a similar, and I won't elaborate, similar situation. But when people are going through a cancel culture scenario, and they're pretty much in a toxic work environment, the reality is that you come to find out who is there and who is not, and you always know who is there to protect their jobs and who is not there to value their jobs. In the workplace is there to be in the workplace for a number of reasons, to work. When there's personal actions, or pretty much you're spying on a coworker, or you're CCing your immediate manager about another person, you notice that that person or persons have underlying issues about what's going on with them when they bring that type of toxicity in the work environment. So, with that being said, I want to be able to reach out to everyone. And I'm glad that I'm starting to see some numbers on the screen, because the last podcast broadcast that I had with Terry Camp and David Diaz, we didn't have nothing. So, could be, shadow blocking, whatever the case may be. But I feel at this point right now, we need to be able to address this. There's a high rise of toxic work environment that is very systemic. It's systemic to a point that it really affects your well-being. So my question to a lot of people would be, what did you get? What do you get out of it? Is called being a professional coward, being more or less enforcing the 2 inches of power, is enforcing that because somebody told on you, you're a form of retaliation. Those are natures of, but people don't understand that when you're in that type of environment, there's three sides of the story. There's your sides, there's their side, and there's the truth. And in that truth, you come to find out that the truth will always come out, regardless of what the situation is. I'm a firm believer in Christ, and I'm a firm believer that my problems are small, but I got a big God. When you start not paying attention to your problems and you make your problems bigger than God, then you have no faith. But then your priorities are that the biggest thing in reality is messing with people's livelihood is a very dangerous thing. Just because you don't like someone, or you find something that you can utilize to prove a point, doesn't take the right for you to ruin somebody's livelihood with the significance of a high rise of unemployment, a high rise of mental illness, and especially a high rise of homelessness. Then you're not taking into account that by you targeting that individual in the workplace, you're really affecting their families. And you're affecting them families for a number of reasons. Just because you want to do it and prove a point tells you that you have no compassion. And by doing that, I believe that you need to understand that everyone has a threshold of mental illness and mental health. But the mental illness part, it causes a lot of triggers and is not very good, which stress kills. And when stress kills, there's no way of fixing it, right? That's a permanent solution to a temporary problem. But I'm here to advocate for veterans and disabled people who have forms of disabilities that have been able to produce themselves or produce a strong livelihood and continue to be able to fit into society in spite of what the challenges are. That doesn't give the employee, the employer, or the employees in the workplace, in the work culture, to create a toxic environment that can significantly damage a person, which is a form of bullying in a hostile work environment, and forms of retaliation that really time kind of not kind will spread out And what happens is when somebody starts something, next thing you know, people start jumping in. But then again, you don't have a conscience to be able to see how it's going to affect the family members, the children, the wife, the husband, the wife. You don't know if they have underlying health issues. You don't know if they have some serious financial problems. You don't know if their parents are having some terminal illness. You don't know any of that. All you know is that if you're at work and you don't like that person, you're taking upon yourself the authority to disrupt their lives and take their livelihood away. Right? I believe the only one that could take their livelihood is themselves because they're in a position to help fire themselves or change the directions of their career. But at the same time, we're losing a sense of humanity because ever since the pandemic, I can honestly tell you there's three stages of the pandemic that I've learned that I've shared with quite a few people that I've interviewed with, and it's this. Since the pandemic of 3 years ago, we have oversensitive people on one side of the spectrum and highly aggressive people on the other side of the spectrum. And in the middle, what they both have in common, they have self entitlements. So, how can a workforce function like that? How can an environment function like that? And for recruiters that I've spoken to, right, they say they're looking for people with great leadership skills. But I've shared with them that your resume is not your work. Your resume is a calling card that gives you an opportunity to express who you are and gives you the opportunity to validate the skills and the skill sets and the resources that you bring to the table that could be transferable skills and that could bring a return investment to any agency or any department that you do. Just because you don't check the boxes doesn't give you the opportunity, doesn't take away the right that you have more of an ability to want to be able to change your life and reinvent yourself, to be part of a society and be part of a culture that can see you for who you are and value what you bring to the table. For other cultures that are very systemic and they're very mundane and routine, which causes being comfortable. And as I've learned, being comfortable gets you killed because you get sloppy, it's very routine, you're not thoughtless, you don't have a purpose, but you have too much time on your hands to look at other people that you might feel threatened because other people might be taking their job seriously. When it comes to leadership and management, that's two different perspectives. Leadership principles and leadership traits bring significant value to any organization. It depends how you deliver the message and how you be able to recite the principles and traits that can be able to enforce the leadership's skills through your organization. At the same time, the value is this. When you learn how to manage, you learn how to manage yourself. In order for you to lead, you need to lead yourself. As a supervisor, as a manager, you're there to manage and supervise and facilitate everything that's possible out there in any organizational fashion that you are exposed to. And when you're managing, it's all about managing. It's not to be dogmatic. It's not to be able to take an opportunity and force the 2 inches of power. It's not the opportunity to show that you are capable of destroying somebody else's life without any sense of recourse or karma. There's nothing like that that can actually take away that gives you the right to destroy somebody's life unless they do it upon themselves. We shouldn't be a posse, a hang up posse of judge, jury, and executioner. I think that's why labor laws are very important. That's why HR is very important to protect the agency. But at the same time, you as an advocate, you should be able, as a person, you should be able to protect yourself at all times. Because as I realized, and I've realized a long time ago, the work, the workplace is not to develop friendships; it's to actually work. And in the course of time, when you're doing performing your work, you'll get to know who you are. And sometimes people are not happy with what you do, but if you maintain your professionalism, it gives you an opportunity to express of what you can do. Now, that doesn't give the other individuals the right to be able to find something, to gossip about something, to have low level thinking, to spew toxic conversations about an individual and ruin the character assassinations that destroys the person's credibility and loses faith within their workforce. I believe that when the trust is broken in a work environment is unrepairable, right? It's very unrepairable. And this is where I believe that mediation is important, but at the same time, forms of mediations need to be discussed and need to be reviewed and need to be revamped. And at the same time, forms of mediation is a platform to express some concerns before things escalate. And if you allow the department of any employer allow that to more or less how you doing, to allow that to get to another level, shame on them because they weren't willing to negotiate. So what I say to people is that if you're in an environment like that and you're suffering from anxiety, you're suffering from depression, you're suffering from PTSDs that trigger that, you have every right to mentally take care of yourself, right? And you need to take care of yourself for your own sake because nobody's going to help you. Nobody's out there to save you. Nobody's going to push you. It's all on you. If you're an adult and you're capable of getting up in the morning and making different choices in your life, you're capable of making different choices how to save your own career, and you have different choices to be able to influence the well-being of yourself and your well family to protect not only your livelihood but the sake of for your family as well. We all suffer from that. And what I've learned since the pandemic is people are being rude and abrupt and self-righteous. Doesn't give anybody right to do that. So when we did a previous show about employee retention program or contract to be able to say, hey, there's funding for employees to be, there's a grant out there. I noticed there wasn't enough people, but I needed to make sure that in my 20 years of being on LinkedIn and these last 2 years of broadcasting and podcasting, it's important to be able to put the truth out with some clarity in the content, right? People follow TikTok, and I follow TikTok for a number of reasons. The content is very, very, it's good. I've seen some people that have outstanding content in TikTok for that shorter span of 30, 60, a minute, 2 minutes. I've seen it. You know what I've learned from that? That people out there have a voice and they utilize social media as a vehicle to be able to express their concerns and give you serious, professional advice. And what we're lacking here in LinkedIn is that we're kind of fickle, right? We like posts, we do everything, we support. I support the veterans. Thank you for your service. I don't want to hear that crap anymore. I'm sick and tired of that. Thank you for your service. It's nonchalant. I got a text today with Abby, my buddy. We've known for so many years. We're going on 6 years that we know each other. And he's telling me about this lady named Victoria that has a nonprofit organization, Purple Houses in Arizona. So I was going to invite her to more or less be on the show, but she's out on dinner, but she could see the recording. But for the most part, my main objective today is to be able to address mental health, right? And wellness. And I can honestly tell you, I just had several treatments of the SGB treatment, which is the Stea Gallian blockage, and acupuncture as well. And I can honestly tell you, during my time of getting the treatment, has helped me quite some bit. It's helped me focus. It's helped me, and I'll put myself out there. It's helped me to deal with some of the challenges that I can't control in society, whether it's professional or personal. There's things that we can't control, but we can control what we can control. But it's also good to seek counsel with individuals or people that you value their opinion that can give you a different perspective for a temporary solution, a temporary problem, and not be there be a permanent solution. like suicide, drug addiction, alcoholism, incarceration, things of that nature. Those are significant trigger points that affects people when they're having mental illness challenges, when they're having challenges keeping a lifestyle or maintaining a livelihood or sustaining a relationship or maintaining their families. I feel that at this point, those are the key points that people need to understand that are priceless commodities, right? The other thing I want to be able to address that's very significant is when people are applying for jobs. I'll tell you that this ATS system, which is right, they pick up all these keywords, these KPIs, these knowledge, skills, and abilities. That's great. Uh, I like the fact that we can go back and apply as much as possible, right? I've tested that as well. But you know what's great is when you get a phone call and somebody reaches out to you and says, "I want to have a conversation with you." So when we've gotten away from that as being personable, and I think that, and not I think, but I know that we need to be level-headed when it comes to making choices that are very long term, that have long term effects. We should not make any bad business decisions based on emotion. We should always seek counsel and weigh the pros and cons. And at the same time, be mindful of how this decision can significantly not only impact you, but the rest of your family members and others as well. As I said this before in the beginning of the show, I have a couple that I know. She reached out to me. She needed support because her and her husband are in the United States Army. Her and her husband, I'm not going to mention their names because I'm protecting them and their privacy and respecting their privacy. But I want to be able to share that this is a particular situation of being ostracized, cancel culture, being kicked out because you're not being liked. You're forced out, which is quiet quitting. And I believe that when I heard this story, it's a shame that our own veteran community eats our own for what they do because they're very judgmental. And they don't know the whole aspects of what's going on. They don't know the dynamics of what's going on. Neither do they want to know. But that tells you the type of individuals they are: self-absorbed, self-righteous, and low-level thinking, and shallow compassion. So the reason why I'm doing this again, this podcast broadcast, because I've been out taking care of some personal matters, and 2022 for me has not been a very good year. What I've learned about 2022 is adversity will kick you in the butt all day, all night. Now, how you respond and get up and you say, "Hey, let's handle it," is a different story. When you have a responsibility for people, not only for yourself, but for others, and they're counting on you to deliver, and for the most part, you know, you're having challenges, but you don't have any resources, or you don't having a supporting cast, or you don't have a sense of community that can be able to help you foster your relationships or broaden your horizons to a point that can give you a different perspective. You're going to you have issues, and it's okay to ask for help, especially if you're having any challenges of anxiety, depression, forms of mental illness, especially PTSD or CPTSD, as like I do. Now, CPTSD is chronic PTSD, has been coming from more or less from a trauma perspective that I've been able to share. And I've been posting quite a bit for quite a long time. But I'll share this with you. As a child, I've been subjected to a lot of traumatic events that's called, CPTSD, manifested by being with the combined with the perfect storm of PTSD in the military. Now, a lot of people think that that type of diagnosis goes away. It never goes away. The only time it goes away is when you expire and you move on and your remains stay here and your soul goes to another direction. But meanwhile, during the course of time, People have emotional challenges and they feel like they're emotionally broken. It's okay to be broken because that makes you different. But what doesn't help is when you choose to be a hero and say I'm good, I'm capable, it's all right, I'll suck it up. But it's killing you inside because the pride of yourself is shadowing the hurt that exactly is inflicting in your pain and is inflicting in your life. That's not good. So, quiet quitting is more or less like you do your job, you do what you got to do. You don't like your job, but you got to be doing something else, just like quiet firing. It's very profound right now, and it's more profound than ever. If you notice in social media, we have a lot of woke situations, right? So, getting back to the beginning of the broadcast, when I had a veteran, 30 years in the army, he was a first sergeant. I'm not going to miss his name, but he has a doctrine. He says that me myself posting a toxic work environment is about the most woke statement he's ever seen, and I look at it as how does that happen? It can happen to anyone, you know, probably because you've been one dimensional all your life. You haven't been able to try different things at different standpoints, but it's happened to everyone. Nobody's immune to it. So, in this narrative, this segment of LinkedIn perspective, right? I want to be able to reach out to people and say, hey, this is what's been going on. This is my assessment. And I wanted to make sure that this podcast broadcast was working correctly as well. Right. And I feel that mental illness in the month of October is bullying month, toxic work environment month, needs to be addressed. Right. It's not a treated like a stepchild. It's not address the elephant in the room. Address it because it's happening. It takes more courage to admit to it and understand it so you can relate to it versus denying it and saying that you don't have a problem. I don't see that as a problem. It tells me a lot about your personality. It tells me a lot about what's going on and why things are doing. But my buddy, good question. How does that happen? Going woke. Well, like I'll address this to Abby. You know, we talked about this offline and I talked about this today. Woke is just a saying, a new word, but woke has been around forever. It's just a different phase of things that are woke to be weak. People don't want to hear it, but it's a fact. So we could be keyboard warriors all day and put our accolades in a social media profile to be able to speak to who we are and people. I want to follow this person because this person is this and this person is that. But like I stated before, ladies and gentlemen, and to my buddy Abby, your resume or your profile is not your work. Is what you actually do with it says brings volumes to people in the actions you demonstrate. If you're able to demonstrate that, people will respect you more by your actions than your words. Deeds bring more promise and value than words. So faith without works is dead, right? So I look at it this point. It's important for everybody to understand that we need to continue to network in all aspects of it, not just from a recruiting standpoint, not just from a business standpoint, but from a collaboration standpoint. So I'm glad that I'm just able to see at least a couple people at this point. But my segment is address quite a few action items, and that's pretty much mental illness, toxic work environments, quiet quitting, quiet firing, woke society, lack of compassion, lack of leadership, and especially lack of community. So, you know, let's be real, folks. You get what you pay for, right? So if you're on a social media platform like LinkedIn, which I've been on for quite some time, you would figure you get something out of it. But it's like any other social media site. It depends how you utilize it, you focus on it, and you deliver it and what your content is. And if people can actually see the true transparency of who you are. They can take it for what it is, full of crap, empty words, empty promises, or hey, the person has some value. But I want to be able to share that with you. So I won't take too much of your time because I'm glad this is working, and I appreciate it. LinkedIn for giving me the opportunity of LinkedIn Perspective. So if you like this segment of LinkedIn Perspective, share it, tag it, like it, make your comments known. I have a channel called LinkedIn Perspective on YouTube. It's important that you put it out there. And this is strictly for content. This is not an ongoing thing. What I actually do, I've created this program for over 2 years ago, and is to be able to give back to social media platform and a virtual town hall to be able to help facilitate conversations and you know, to facilitate the actions of people and help them create a community. And the last thing I want to be able to show is that as we are veterans, we should never dog our own veteran community out. We should never eat our own, right? And we should never put them and cast them out aside. Can't play favorites. You can't. And that's why people don't understand that if you don't know what your purpose is, then you have a problem. If you're still living in the past from major mistakes like I have, and you haven't learned from them and you haven't gone to grow with them, you still have a problem. But if you're easy to point the finger and think you're better, you definitely have a problem. So your leadership principles and traits should be able to explain and showcase your character of who you are. So 3 things that I'm sure that I stand by. I'm not for sale, right? When it comes to integrity, when it comes to selling my soul, and when it comes to breaking my word. So those are 3 main factors that I stick with. So if you're serious about what's going on, I appreciate it. This is my nephew, Command Sergeant Major J. Cass. What a success story. Yeah. So on this Friday night, just want you to reach out and make sure that you're able to understand that we do care. We do have advocates for veterans and veterans' rights. It's not a 9 to 5. It's not a 9 to 5 job. It's a 24/7 job. So even like people like myself that will have challenges, I will also seek counsel as well. Doesn't make me weak. It makes me stronger because I'm able to open up and demonstrate what challenges I am, but I refuse to quit. So the last thing is, I remember running into Goggins at the airport. And that's the last thing I'll always remember, when he just opened another book, not finished. So if you like his book, look it up. Not Finished is a good seller. It's going to be better than the other one, that You Can't Hurt Me. But for LinkedIn followers, connectors, first line connects, directs, second line, third kind followers, you need to pay attention to what you're doing. Don't overpromise and underdeliver if you can't deliver, if you can't support someone in a time of need, and you can't donate your time to people that really need an ear to be listened to, So I just want to really reiterate that as much as possible. As I stated, we all have challenges. But my philosophy, as I'm going to wrap this up right now, is I plan to go to one direction. That one direction is going up there. I made a promise. I don't care if I make all the money in the world, man. I'm going to do the right thing. And that's all that matters. So Simplify, always beside you. If you like the segment of LinkedIn Perspective, share it, like it, tag it. If you care to make any more comments, feel free. And if you have any suggestions, please do. So simplify, always beside you. Enjoy your Friday night. Peace out.